Have you ever trusted someone completely, only to find out later that they were lying all along? It makes you question everything, doesn't it? Imagine your partner comes home late and gives you an overly detailed explanation about why they're late, down to what song was playing in the car. At first you shrug it off, but then you notice their story doesn't quite add up. The words sound convincing, but their nervous laugh and fidgeting hands tell a different story. That's when it hits you, something's not right, but you don't want to believe it. Let's face it, people lie far more often than we realize. And it's not just strangers we suspect, it could be your best friend, your partner, or even someone in your family. We all like to believe we're good at spotting lies, but in reality, we tend to ignore the warning signs, especially when it's someone we care about. I've been there thinking I could always spot a lie, until someone I trusted deceived me for months. The signs were right in front of me. Subtle behavior changes, overly detailed stories, sudden defensiveness. But I ignored them because I didn't want to face the truth. People lie more often than we'd like to believe. Once we accept this, it becomes easier to see through the lies. Ready to uncover the truth? Here are the undeniable signs someone is lying to you. This might reveal more than you expect. Number 1. Dodging the subject. Why they change the topic fast. Ever felt like someone is dodging your question so fast it's like playing verbal dodgeball? You bring up something meaningful, maybe a topic you care about deeply, and suddenly, boom, they're talking about something completely different. It's like they always have an escape route ready. The moment things get too real, they disappear into the comfort of a random, unrelated topic. Let me share a personal story. I was once in a relationship where this happened constantly, but at first I didn't even notice it. Every time I brought up serious plans, like where we wanted to be in the future, or how we'd handle tough situations, they'd quickly steer the conversation towards something trivial. Dinner plans or some random thing they saw on Instagram would suddenly become the focus. It was so subtle that I let it slide. I told myself they just weren't ready for the conversation, or maybe I was being too intense. But here's the truth. They were never ready. It wasn't just about avoiding a topic, it was about avoiding responsibility. And that's the uncomfortable part. People don't change the subject because they're forgetful or distracted. They do it because facing the truth feels too heavy. And we let them get away with it because we're afraid of pushing too hard. We prefer peace, even if it means letting lies slip through unnoticed. But here's where we make the biggest mistake. Dodging a tough conversation doesn't prevent conflict. It opens the door to dishonesty. When someone is quick to change the subject, it's more than just avoidance. It's a refusal to face the truth. It shows they care more about their comfort than giving you the clarity you deserve. And what does that say about your relationship? Sometimes lies don't come in the form of words. They come in the shape of silence, in the unspoken shifts in conversation. The lies left unsaid are the ones that erode trust slowly, piece by piece. I learned this the hard way. Every time I allowed the conversation to shift, I was silently agreeing to stay in the dark. I wanted to believe things were fine, so I let them change the subject. But here's the danger. When people steer the conversation away from the truth, they're not just avoiding the topic, they're compromising the integrity of the relationship. So what's the takeaway? Don't let people off the hook when they change the subject. It's not about being confrontational, it's about setting a standard for honesty. If someone truly values you, they'll face the difficult conversations, no matter how uncomfortable. And if they won't, it's time to question what kind of relationship you're really building. Because the truth, no matter how hard, builds stronger bonds than any carefully crafted lie. Number 2, overreacting to simple questions, the hidden guilt. Ever ask someone a harmless question, and suddenly they act like you've just accused them of something terrible? It's like, hey, did you take the last slice of pizza? And next thing you know, they're going off about how they'd never do that and how dare you even suggest it. That wild overreaction, it's a flashing red flag. I'm hiding something. Let me tell you a story. I was part of a group project, and one of my teammates got super defensive anytime I asked for an update on his work. I'd ask, how's the report coming along? A completely normal question, but he'd immediately snap back with things like, why do you always think I'm slacking off? I've been working hard. I don't need to be micromanaged. Funny enough, This was the same guy scrolling through his phone during meetings. It wasn't long before we discovered he'd barely done his part, and the whole time he was trying to cover it up with his over-the-top reactions. Here's the controversial part. When someone gets overly defensive with no real reason, it's usually because they're guilty. The saying, "a hit dog will holler," couldn't be more true. I've learned that when someone reacts like this, it's time to step back and see the bigger picture. What are they so desperately trying to protect? Because when someone has nothing to hide, they don't turn a simple question into a full-blown attack on their character. Honest people stay calm and direct. Guilty people. They're on edge, waiting for the truth to catch up with them. The deeper message here is about human nature. When people act defensive without cause, it's their guilt talking, not their integrity. And you've got to be brave enough to see that their overreaction isn't about you overstepping. It's about them trying to stop you from finding the truth. It's like they've locked all the doors in a house, pretending everything's fine while you're holding the key, unaware. They're just hoping you won't try to open that door. And here's the kicker. When we ignore those defensive reactions, we give lies room to grow. We let people manipulate us into feeling bad for simply asking. But it's not about being rude or pushy. It's about valuing honesty over false comfort. People will twist themselves in knots to avoid getting caught in a lie, and defensiveness is just one of their tricks. So, next time someone gets unreasonably defensive over a harmless question, don't back down. Stay curious, dig a little deeper. Because 9 times out of 10, their overreaction is just smoke, and behind that smoke is the truth you deserve to know. Number 3, the perfect story, when flawless details hide a flawed truth. Ever listen to someone tell a story that's so well crafted, it feels like they rehearsed it for a blockbuster movie? Every detail is perfectly placed, the timing is spot on, and the story flows so smoothly that it almost feels too good to be true. Well, guess what? It probably is. I've seen this more times than I care to admit. There was this guy I knew, we'll call him Jake, who could tell stories like he was auditioning for an award. One time he recounted this business deal he supposedly closed, describing every moment like a scene from a James Bond movie. The handshake, the skyline, the perfect timing, it was all there down to the smallest detail. You could almost hear the movie soundtrack in the background. But here's the thing, real life is messy. It doesn't follow a script, and when someone's story sounds like it's been polished for a TED Talk, that's when your internal lie detector should be buzzing. Sure enough, half of Jake's story was exaggerated, and the rest completely made up. Now, here's where it gets controversial. Most people don't want to call out those overly polished stories because, let's be honest, we love a good tale. We like stories that are neat, engaging, and cinematic. But that's how liars slip under the radar. They know we crave narratives that make sense, stories that wrap up neatly with a bow. But life doesn't come in perfect packages, and when someone's tale is too smooth, you're probably listening to fiction, not fact. Here's the deeper truth. When someone overpolishes their story, it's not just about impressing you. They're trying to control the narrative. They want you to believe a version of events that's crafted to make them look good. It's like they're the director, writer, and star of their own movie, and you're just the audience expected to clap without question. I learned this the hard way. When I started asking Jake for more details, things began to fall apart. The sharp edges of his narrative blurred, and what seemed like a flawless success story unraveled into an awkward mess. That's the thing about liars. They can rehearse the story, but they can't handle the follow-up questions. Real life is chaotic, and when someone's too smooth, they're probably weaving a fantasy, not sharing the truth. Here's the deep message. Life is complex, imperfect, and that's what makes it real. When someone's story is flawless with every detail aligned, they're selling you an illusion, and if you buy into it, you're selling yourself short. Real connection, real trust, and real relationships are built on raw honesty, even when it's uncomfortable. So, next time someone gives you a story that seems a little too perfect, don't just sit back and enjoy the show. Ask questions, dig deeper, because the truth, it's messy. And if someone's not willing to show you the imperfections, they're not showing you the truth at all. Remember, life doesn't have to be perfect to be real, and anyone pretending otherwise is hiding something they don't want you to see. Number 4, when their body speaks the truth. Why turning away reveals hidden lies. Have you ever been talking to someone who says all the right things, but their body is sending a different message? They're speaking directly to you, but their body is subtly angled away, almost like they'd rather be anywhere else. It's one of those sneaky, unspoken signals that most people miss, but trust me, it speaks louder than their words. Let me share a real example. I had this friend who, whenever we'd dive into deeper conversations, would slowly shift his body away from me. At first, I thought, maybe he's just trying to get comfortable. But the more it happened, the clearer the pattern became. Whenever we talked about something personal or uncomfortable, his body would physically turn away, like it was trying to escape the conversation. I didn't need a degree in psychology to figure out something was off. And sure enough, later on, I found out he had been hiding a few things. Nothing huge, but still, enough to break the trust between us. His body had given him away long before his words did. Here's where it gets controversial. Most people dismiss body language, thinking it's no big deal, but that's a mistake. Your body doesn't lie the way your words can. When someone turns their body away, even slightly, it's like their subconscious is saying, "I don't want to be fully seen right now." They're distancing themselves not just from you, but from the truth. And the worst part? Most of us brush these signals off because we don't want to deal with what they might mean. We tell ourselves it's just a habit or nothing important. But here's the deeper message. Body language doesn't happen by accident. If someone turns away while speaking to you, it's a sign that they're uncomfortable with what's being discussed. They're not just restless, they're trying to shield themselves from being exposed. And in my experience, that's often because they're hiding something they're not ready to admit. The next time you notice someone subtly angling away during a conversation, take it as a cue. Maybe it's time to ask the tough question they're avoiding. Maybe it's time to dig a little deeper to uncover the truth. Because here's the reality. Honesty doesn't turn its back on you, and neither should the people you trust. Number 5. Laughing off serious topics, a sign of avoidance. Have you ever tried to have a serious conversation with someone, only for them to laugh it off like it's nothing? Imagine opening up about something deeply important like, "I've been feeling disconnected lately," and all you get in return is a chuckle and, "Oh, you're just overthinking it. Relax." That laugh may seem harmless, but it's actually a way to dodge the real issue. It's their subtle escape from facing what's uncomfortable. I've been through this before. Whenever I tried to talk about something serious, the conversation was met with humor, sarcasm, or a quick joke. At first, I brushed it off, thinking maybe they didn't know how to handle heavy topics. But over time, I realized this laughter wasn't innocent at all. It was a defense mechanism to avoid accountability. People often laugh off serious stuff because they don't want to deal with the weight of it. They want to keep the atmosphere light and breezy so that you don't dig deeper. They hope that if they laugh enough, you'll drop the topic. But here's the thing. Real conversations, the ones that actually matter, aren't supposed to be easy. They're meant to challenge you, to push both people toward honesty and growth. If someone can't face that with you, you have to start asking yourself, what are they really hiding? Here's what I learned. When someone laughs off a serious conversation, it's not about you being too serious or overthinking. It's about them not wanting to face uncomfortable truths. And when they turn serious topics into a joke, they're not just dismissing the conversation. They're shutting down the possibility of real connection. So the next time someone tries to laugh off something important, don't let it slide. Call it out. Ask them, "Why is this funny to you?" Because that simple question can expose the underlying discomfort they're trying to hide. Honesty isn't always light and funny, and if they can't handle it, maybe they're not being as honest as you think. Number 6. Inconsistent details when stories don't add up. Have you ever heard a story that seemed almost too perfect, with every detail lining up just a little too neatly? It's like someone is reading from a script, and it doesn't quite feel real. This could be a sign that the story is more fiction than fact. Here's a personal story to illustrate. I once had a colleague who would always share these grand tales of business success, full of perfectly timed events and dramatic turns. One time he described closing a major deal with such precision that it felt like I was watching a movie. Every detail was meticulously placed, and it seemed almost rehearsed. But here's the kicker. Real life is messy. It doesn't come with perfect timing or flawless sequences. When someone's story is too smooth, it might be hiding something. My colleague's tales, upon closer inspection, were filled with inconsistencies. The details didn't quite line up, and as I dug deeper, the cracks started to show. What initially seemed like a flawless narrative unraveled into something far less impressive. This brings us to a crucial point. People who embellish or over-polish their stories often do so to create a specific image or to hide the truth. They want you to see a curated version of events that benefits them, rather than the messy reality. Here's a deeper message. When someone's story seems too perfect, it's worth questioning. Real-life stories are often imperfect, filled with genuine ups and downs. If every detail in someone's account is too well aligned, it might be an attempt to mask the truth. I learned this lesson through experience. The more I pressed for details, the more the story started to fall apart. Genuine stories may have inconsistencies, but that's what makes them real. When someone presents a narrative that's too polished, they're likely avoiding the truth. So, when someone shares a story with all the bells and whistles, don't just take it at face value. Look for the gaps, ask for more details, and trust your instincts. Real honesty isn't afraid to be messy. If their story doesn't add up, it's worth probing deeper to uncover what's really going on. Remember, perfection in storytelling often masks a deeper truth. Don't let a well-crafted narrative distract you from the reality beneath the surface. Number 7. Vague answers when clarity is missing. We've all been there. Someone tells you something, but when you ask for more details, the answer is vague, unclear, or just plain dodgy. They'll say things like, "Oh, it's complicated," or "We're still figuring things out." It's frustrating, right? It's like they're giving you just enough. Information to sound like they're in control, but not enough for you to know what's really going on. Let me give you an example. I once worked with someone who was always bragging about these big deals they were supposedly closing. Whenever we asked for specifics, like which companies they were working with, or how the negotiations were going, it was always the same story. "Oh, we're in the early stages," or "I can't say much right now, but it's huge." Weeks would pass, and the story never changed. Just more vague updates and empty promises. Here's the reality. Honest people don't need to hide behind vagueness. When someone is telling the truth, they can give you clear, straightforward answers because they've got nothing to hide. But when someone's being vague, it's often because they don't want to get caught in a lie or they're trying to avoid accountability. The more vague they are, the less likely you are to push harder for the truth. Here's the deeper issue. Vagueness erodes trust. It's like building a wall between you and the other person. Every unclear answer adds another layer to that wall. And the worst part? They're counting on you to be too polite or too distracted to push for clarity. But honesty doesn't dance around the details. If someone truly respects you, they'll give you clear, specific answers, even if the truth is uncomfortable. The next time someone gives you a vague answer when you're asking for specifics, don't let it slide. Push for clarity. You deserve to know what's really going on. Vagueness might seem harmless, but it's often a sign of deeper issues that can break trust faster than any lie ever could. Number 8, the power of silence, listening to connect, not compete. Listening, truly listening, is one of the most underestimated skills when it comes to building deep connections. But here's the harsh truth. Most of us don't actually listen. We wait for our turn to speak. We're so focused on crafting our next clever response that we miss the chance to truly hear what the other person is saying. And that's the quickest way to make someone feel invisible. Here's something controversial. If you're not listening to understand, you're wasting your time. I've been guilty of it myself, sitting in conversations, nodding along, pretending to be engaged while my mind is already racing ahead, preparing my next point. And guess what? People can sense it. They know when you're just waiting to talk. It doesn't make them feel valued. It makes them feel used. That's not charm, it's selfishness. But when you listen to truly understand, you give that person something invaluable, your respect and undivided attention. It's no longer just surface-level chit-chat. It's a genuine connection. I remember having a conversation with a colleague who was clearly struggling. My instinct was to jump in with advice to fix the problem, but instead I chose to listen. No interruptions, no advice, just pure, focused attention. And something remarkable happened. They opened up even more. By the end, they said, "I've never felt so heard." That moment changed my perspective. Sometimes the best thing you can offer is your silence and your ears. Here's the deeper message. In a world full of noise, genuine listening is a rare and precious gift. People don't always need your advice or opinions. They want understanding. They want to feel like someone truly sees them, that someone gets them. When you can offer that, you instantly stand out. That's real charm. So stop listening just to respond. Listen to understand. That's how you make people feel truly seen and valued. And that's where the real magic of connection happens.